Daniel's ex-girlfriend had been diagnosed with cancer. I sent her some money anonymously, hoping to help quietly. But my attempt stayed hidden no longer. One day, Daniel hurled a card at me angrily. "We're already married. What more do you want? Do you intend to shame someone who's dying by throwing money at them?" I remained silent, just looking at him calmly. Then I said, "Daniel, you were the one who asked me to marry you first." The day we learned about Lily's diagnosis happened to be the same day as our anniversary getaway. As I was packing, I turned to Daniel and asked if I should bring along that dark green tie instead. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared blankly at his phone, almost detached from reality. I called out again and finally he looked up. "Mia," he hesitated. "What's wrong?" "Lily is dying." After those words, he avoided my gaze and rushed out the door like every second mattered, like he might not see her again. When I reached the hospital, I found Daniel already there with Lily. He had just gone over her diagnosis. His face was somber as he asked when it had happened. "She told us she'd found out last month during a routine checkup. The doctor said it was too advanced for a cure." Before she could finish, she noticed me standing in the doorway and began crying uncontrollably. "I'm sorry, Mia. I didn't mean to interfere with your marriage. I'm just so terrified. I'm only 24. I don't want to die." Daniel turned to look at me then, his expression hardening into something accusing. "Why are you here?" At that moment, mentioning our planned anniversary trip felt wrong, so I lowered my eyes and gently offered to help. "I just wanted to see if there's anything I can do." But before Lily could respond, Daniel snapped harshly. "No, it's fine. You should leave." Reluctantly, I walked away, glancing back once to see Daniel holding Lily tightly. Her face rested on his shoulder, eyes closed, tears flowing freely. "You're everything I have," she whispered. "Daniel, I have nothing but you." He held her even closer, his voice strained. "I understand." It was clear they shared a deep, inseparable love. And I stood there, overwhelmed with emotion, yet powerless in the shadow of death. In the face of such profound feelings, the emotions of the living seemed trivial. Daniel and I had been childhood sweethearts, dating since we were 16. But due to family changes, I had to move abroad, unsure of when or if I would return. That uncertainty led me to break up with Daniel. He was furious, accusing me of not trusting him to handle a long-distance relationship. On my departure day, he showed up at the airport with teary eyes and said, "Mia, I'll wait for you to come back, no matter how long it takes. I'll always wait." His promise helped me endure the toughest days alone, and I managed to complete a 5-year course in just 3 years. But when I returned, Daniel had a new girlfriend, a young, pretty girl named Lily, who had been his junior in school. I later learned she had pursued him for 2 years before he reluctantly agreed to be with her. After my return, some childhood friends got together, and someone brought up Lily. "She's so needy," they said. "She follows Daniel everywhere. If he drinks, she stays to sober him up. If he's ill, she cooks for him." I heard she even tried to join our gathering that day. Daniel frowned, clearly irritated. "Don't bring her up." "Right. Now that Mia's back, Daniel should probably end things with her." I instinctively glanced at Daniel, but he wasn't paying attention. He was staring down at his phone. The gathering ended awkwardly. Later, Daniel offered to drive me home, but his tense demeanor suggested he didn't really want to. Politely declined. "No need, I didn't drink and I can drive myself." He seemed relieved and left. Later I found out that day was Lily's birthday. She had been photographed on the Ferris wheel, holding a cake and forcing a smile. Daniel had rushed through the night to reach her just before midnight. When I got home, my partially packed luggage was still scattered around the bedroom. I started repacking piece by piece. Reaching for my toiletry bag, I paused. Inside was an electric shaver, slightly old, bright sky blue. Something Daniel wouldn't typically buy. So who gave it to him? The answer was clear. I stared at it for a moment before placing it back in the drawer. After dark, Daniel finally came home. His eyes were bloodshot, his nose slightly red, and his expression weary. I approached him and said, "I've cancelled the flight and the hotel for my parents. When we go back this weekend, we can tell them that what we promised to bring might not arrive this time. We'll get more on our next trip abroad." I was simply discussing our cancelled plans, but suddenly Daniel became angry. He stared into my eyes with a harsh tone. "Why are you even telling me this? Can't you handle such a minor issue yourself?" I froze, suddenly recalling years ago when we first dated. Back in high school in different classes. I had trouble with some girls and dealt with it on my own without telling Daniel. He found out anyway and stepped in, chasing the girls away. Then he confronted me angrily. "Why didn't you tell me when you were in trouble? I could manage it myself, but I'm your boyfriend." A teenage Daniel insisted on being involved, visiting me every night for 2 weeks until he gradually made me share things with him, keeping him informed of my activities. Now he was saying, "Why are you even telling me this? Can't you handle such a minor issue yourself?" It seemed Daniel realized he was losing his composure, so he softened slightly. "Sorry, Mia. I'm just feeling a bit stressed." I took a deep breath and said I was going to take a shower. When I came out, Daniel was nowhere to be seen. I searched and found him on the upstairs terrace, smoking cigarette after cigarette. Daniel wasn't a habitual smoker, not since a major fight with Lily and breaking up with her. Not until that night. I found him on the balcony, staring into the starry northern sky where the city's tallest Ferris wheel stood. Just like before, I didn't say anything and quietly went back to the bedroom. The next morning I woke up with a splitting headache. I've always struggled with migraines, so I searched for painkillers. Suddenly, Daniel stormed out of the bathroom, furious. "Where is my shaver?" My temples throbbed, and before I could respond, he grabbed my wrist tightly. "Mia, where is my shaver?" he repeated, his grip painful. "It's in the bedside drawer." Without another word, Daniel began searching for the shaver Lily had given him. I rubbed my sore wrist, found some painkillers, and took 2 pills. Lily's cancer diagnosis had completely consumed Daniel's thoughts. To him, my headache was a minor issue. In the days that followed, Daniel didn't go to work. He spent his time contacting every top oncologist in the city. They all confirmed the same prognosis. Lily's cancer was terminal. No treatment could offer a cure, only a slight extension of her life. Each confirmation deepened the pain on Daniel's face. One evening while driving home from work, I saw Daniel and Lily in the yard. Compared to before, Lily looked even thinner. She had taken off her blue and white striped hospital gown and was wearing a wine-red slip dress, sitting on the swing in the yard. The golden-red sunset bathed her in warm light, contrasting with her pale face. There was Daniel, kneeling on one knee before her, applying lipstick to her pale lips. I watched quietly from my car. At that moment, I couldn't help but think that perhaps Daniel's biggest regret was marrying me. I stayed at a nearby bar until midnight, and eventually, Daniel seemed to realize I wasn't home, so he called me. "Mia, where are you?" Before I could respond, the sound of a band playing filled the line. Daniel paused and said, "I'll come get you." By the time he arrived, the band had finished their last song and left the stage. I was sitting in a corner with an untouched mojito on the table. Daniel stood before me, the dim light giving his face a solemn look. "Why did you come here alone to drink?" "I didn't," I replied. "I just ordered a drink and sat here listening to music." Hearing this, Daniel's expression softened slightly. He took my hand and said, "Let's go home." As I got into the car, I smelled the familiar scent of disinfectant. It was clear he had only remembered me after sending Lily back to the hospital. So I asked, "How's Lily doing?" Truthfully, since learning about her illness, I had kept quiet about it with Daniel. This was the first time I brought it up. He couldn't avoid it anymore and had to answer, "Not well. I've arranged for the best doctors to treat her, but the situation remains grim. Realizing how that sounded, he added, "Mia, don't get me wrong. I just feel guilty for not treating her better before and want to make it up to her." That was the truth. Friends back home had told me Daniel hadn't treated Lily well. 6 months after I went abroad, Daniel met Lily. She was grateful for his help in solving her problems, and her gratitude blossomed into love over 2 years. No matter how distant or sarcastic Daniel was, she remained passionately devoted. Eventually he was moved, but even while dating, Lily always gave more. Thinking of this, I sighed deeply. Besides, she's about to die. Daniel's voice even cracked slightly when he said that. The helplessness and guilt that come when a healthy person faces an unbeatable illness were feelings I understood too well. At that moment I felt utterly powerless. Even though Daniel is my husband and I am his legal wife, the rest of the car ride was silent. As we passed through a garden on our way home, I instinctively paused in front of the swing. Daniel turned and asked what was wrong. I shook my head. Nothing. It was so blinding. When I suggested we go to the hospital with Daniel to visit Lily, his initial reaction was suspicion. I pretended not to notice. "Is that not okay?" After a few seconds, Daniel finally agreed. "It's fine." Perhaps due to recent improvements in her treatment, Lily looked much better. After some conversation, she mentioned wanting to be discharged and return to work. "I know it's impossible to be fully cured, but in my last few months, I want to live as normally as possible. Is that okay?" She looked at Daniel with hopeful eyes, and naturally he didn't refuse. Daniel suggested arranging a job for Lily at his company, but she immediately declined. No, that wouldn't be fair. I want to find a job on my own merit." Unsurprisingly, Daniel turned to me. "I'll pay her salary. You don't have to assign her any actual work. It won't affect you." I couldn't help but smirk sarcastically. "And what exactly do you think I am, Daniel?" He froze briefly, then sighed. "But she's sick." "Yes, she's sick. She has cancer. She's dying. So whatever she wants to do, we healthy people have to accommodate her unconditionally." After a long pause, I took a business card from my bag and handed it to him calmly. "I'll give you the HR contact. Let her submit a resume and go through the normal interview process." Daniel didn't take the card. Instead, he looked at me with a cold stare, as if seeing me for the first time. "Mia, being so petty with someone who's about to die. You make me feel scared." Even after Daniel walked away, I stood there motionless, holding on to my last shred of dignity. A young girl then approached me from behind, tapped my shoulder and gently said, "Mia, your pants are dirty." I snapped out of it and thanked her. In reality, my lower back had been sore since I woke up that morning. My period had started early. While I was in the hospital corridor, Daniel was so preoccupied with Lily that he didn't notice me buying sanitary pads from the convenience store or using the bathroom. Years ago, when I had my first period at school, it was chaotic. Daniel went to the school shop to buy sanitary pads and tied his jacket around my waist. But that was when Daniel was only 14. Later, I had my assistant look into Lily's background. It wasn't much different from what I had imagined. She had a tragic life. No loving parents, always lived in poverty. Daniel was the only source of light in her life. Without his help, she might not have been able to afford her cancer treatment. So I had my assistant transfer money to Lily's account under her family's name. Not employing her at my company was the last boundary I was willing to hold. That night when I came home, I turned on the lights and saw Daniel standing by the entrance, staring blankly at me. I was surprised. "You're home early today." His response was unexpected. He threw a bank card at my face, hitting me near my eye. A sharp pain shot through my temple, intensifying with every second, causing my fingers to curl in discomfort. Daniel stepped closer, gripping my wrist tightly. His voice filled with anger. "We're married now. What more do you want? Why are you humiliating her by giving her money?" He paused, then continued bitterly. "I didn't, Mia. You've had a wealthy and perfect family since childhood. You studied at the best schools abroad, returned, and joined your family's company. I broke up with her and married you. Everything has gone smoothly for you. But she has nothing. Does humiliating her make you feel even more superior in your noble life? Closed my eyes. Countless memories flashed through my mind like a fragmented movie. Memories of love, promises, pain, and silence. When I opened them again, I tried to keep my voice calm, though there was still a tremor in it. Daniel, you can't talk to me like this. You can't. He released my hand, took a step back, and looked at me as if he wanted to say something else. But just then his phone rang. He pulled it out and saw Lily's name flash across the screen. His expression changed slightly, but without hesitation. He brushed past me and left the room. I stood there alone, staring at the painting on the wall, gently pressing the injury near my eye. The pain only seemed to get worse. After that night, Daniel didn't come home for several days. He didn't contact me, but I knew why. Lily's condition had worsened. She was crying out in unbearable pain, calling for Daniel. And Daniel, who had always been there for me, chose to go to her without hesitation. I went to a distant hospital for a full-body checkup. The doctor gave me a stern warning. Miss Liu, you need to find a way to release your emotions. It will be good for you. I remained silent for a long time before finally saying, "Thank you, but I don't have anyone to talk to. Who could I even confide in?" During those 3 years abroad, at my lowest point, I fainted from a stomach hemorrhage and was hospitalized by a barely acquainted classmate. After discharge, while walking down a quiet street, I got caught in a shootout. A bullet grazed my waist. I had grown used to being alone, especially during the time Daniel and I were broken up. By the time I returned, he already had Lily by his side. Accepting Daniel's proposal was admittedly selfish. On countless nights when I could barely hold on, I thought of the boy who had stood at the airport with red eyes, promising to wait for me no matter how long it took. That memory always gave me a little more courage. As I reflected on the past, I slowly walked out of the hospital. Suddenly, someone stood before me. I looked up to see Daniel staring at me with a cold and frightening expression. His voice was filled with fear. "Mia, why are you at the hospital?" I froze for a moment, then suddenly understood. He was afraid I might end up like Lily. So I smiled. "Just a checkup." Daniel didn't believe me. I pulled out the medical report from my bag and handed it to him. I kept the psychologist's report to myself. The data showed nothing seriously wrong with my body. Daniel's face remained tense as he carefully reviewed the report twice. Then he focused on one line. "Old waist injury. No major issues." He asked me, "What injury is this? Why have I never heard you mention it?" I hesitated for a moment. "Oh, it was from a shootout abroad. I was slightly injured." As we got into the car, Daniel's gaze was so cold it felt like it could freeze over. Feeling helpless, I stared at the passing scenery for a while before deciding to speak. "Don't worry. I know my body well. I get a checkup every year. I'm not like Lily." "Why didn't you call me?" He abruptly interrupted me, slamming on the brakes and pulling the car to the side of the road. He unbuckled his seatbelt and leaned toward me. I knew he was asking about today's checkup, so I looked at him calmly. "It was just a routine checkup. Isn't Lily's condition worse these days?" Mentioning Lily caused a complicated emotion to flash in his eyes, something resembling both jealousy and anger. But ultimately, his focus returned to me. His voice was less confident now. "When you were injured so badly before, you should have told me, Mia." This time I couldn't help but laugh. "When I was injured." Paused slightly. "It should have been the day you were finally moved by Lily's persistent pursuit and agreed to be with her." In the days that followed, Daniel's attitude toward me became much warmer. Beyond our exhausting married life, he would even wait for me in his car outside my office every day after work. For a moment it felt like we were 18 again, back when there was nothing between us except pure and intense love. I kept wondering and speculating until I finally told him, "You don't have to feel guilty. Even if you had known back then, being half a world away, it wouldn't have made a difference." The smile on Daniel's face instantly disappeared. He took a deep breath. "I'm not trying to make it up to you, Mia. You're my wife. We've only been married for a little over a year. This is how things are supposed to be." Before I could say anything, Daniel's phone, which was on the dashboard, suddenly lit up. It was a message from Lily. Surprisingly, Daniel didn't respond. I asked him, "How is Lily doing?" Daniel let out a cold laugh. "What does that have to do with me? She has plenty of people who want to take care of her. She doesn't need me." I thought, if he looked into the rearview mirror at that moment, he would see his own eyes filled with burning jealousy. I soon understood why. At the end of the month, I visited a relative in the hospital and coincidentally saw Lily there too. As I passed by her room, I saw her in her hospital gown, her thin fingers repeatedly dialing a number. Beside her stood a young man in a black baseball cap. He cast a dark glance at me through the doorway and gently said to Lily, "Stop calling. After all, he's married now and needs to go home to his wife. Lily, you still have me." I soon understood why. At the end of the month, I visited a relative in the hospital and coincidentally saw Lily there too. As I passed by her room, I saw her in her hospital gown, her thin fingers repeatedly dialing a number. Beside her stood a young man in a black baseball cap. He cast a dark glance at me through the doorway and gently said to Lily, "Stop calling. After all, he's married now and needs to go home to his wife. Lily, you still have me." Lily acted as if she hadn't heard him. She continued to dial Daniel's number, tears streaming down her face as she pleaded, "Don't ignore me, Daniel. You promised you'd stay with me until the end." I admit, at that moment I felt envious of her. My life had always followed a predetermined path, leaving me with no choices. When I returned home, Daniel had already prepared dinner. I casually mentioned, "I saw Lily today. She looks like she's lost more weight." Daniel stared at me, his expression immediately turning serious. "Why did you go see her?" That piercing look snapped me out of my momentary trance. I laughed mockingly. "Don't worry, I wasn't there to cause her any trouble. I just happened to pass by while visiting someone else." "That's not what I meant," Daniel replied, avoiding my gaze. "Perhaps to make it up to me, he suggested we go out for my birthday next month. We could catch a midnight movie, watch back-to-back showings, and then go to the beach to watch the sunrise." I should have refused. But the earnest look in his eyes, and the plan he proposed, reminiscent of what we did together on my 16th birthday, made me agree. Back then I had felt suffocated. Even though Daniel didn't know what was going on, he noticed my distress. So in the middle of the night, he knocked on my window and took me out. We watched 2 movies together. A little thing called Love and Roman Holiday. By the time the movies ended, the sky was pale. Daniel rode his bike along the coastal highway, eventually stopping at the edge of a cliff where the golden sun slowly rose from the sea. He confessed his feelings to me. But that was a long time ago. So long that now he had to recreate those memories to piece together the scattered details. So I agreed. I said yes, just like that night when we were 16, even if watching the same movies couldn't bring back the feelings we once had. It was as if whenever I was with Daniel, I found myself constantly reminiscing about the past. This meant the current Daniel could no longer balance my love and disappointment. I was simply unwilling to let go, still clinging to those moments when he held on to me and prevented me from falling. Once I realized this, I focused on Daniel beside me. He wasn't watching the movie either. Instead, he looked restless. Occasionally, he would pull out his phone, glance at it, and put it away, as if it had stung him. I quietly reminded him, "It's vibrating. Someone's calling you." Daniel forced a smile. "Don't worry about it. Today I'm here to celebrate your birthday." Pathetic and laughable. I actually believed him. After the movie ended, Daniel finally answered Lily's 28th call. On the other end, I could hear her desperate sobbing. Daniel, being sick is so hard. I vomited so much blood. Am I going to die? Daniel calmly put away his phone, leaned down and kissed my cheek. I'm going to the restroom. And then he never came back. I waited for a long time outside that secluded private theater by the sea. Eventually I called Daniel. His phone was off. After hanging up, I saw that Lily had sent me a friend request on WeChat. Accepted it. She quickly sent several messages. I'm sorry, Mia. I know today is your birthday. I wanted to prove how important I am to him. You're Daniel's white moonlight. No matter how well I treat him, I can't shake your place in his heart. But now I'm sick and dying. Let me be selfish just once. Let me be a vile woman. White moonlight. That term felt repulsive. I felt a surge of violent emotion rising within me. But before I could respond, a hand suddenly grabbed me, pulling me into a nearby alley with tremendous force. I fell to the ground in my dress, my knees and elbows scraping against the rough pavement and walls, sending waves of sharp pain through my body. I looked up and met a pair of gloomy, crazed eyes. They seemed familiar yet strange. It was the young man in black from Lily's hospital room. You're Daniel's wife. Who do you think you are, making Lily upset? She suffers from cancer day and night. And you, being the happy little princess, aren't enough? You have to take away the man she loves, making her last days miserable too. He pulled the brim of his baseball cap lower, looking at me cruelly. Make it hurt as much as possible. But don't let her pass out. The sky slowly began to lighten. The sunrise was almost here. And behind the young man, a tall, menacing figure emerged, stopping in front of me. Dust scattered. Why does everyone think Lily is the one to pity? I'm the one who's lost everything. Those fragmented images flashed through my mind once again. This time I saw them more clearly. I was 6 years old when my mother was suddenly diagnosed with late-stage breast cancer. Even after a full mastectomy, the cancer cells still spread. As she lay in bed, her vitality fading day by day, someone came to the house. It was my aunt, my mother's twin sister, who looked about 80% like her. She naturally took over my mother's role, assuming everything that had once belonged to her. My father didn't protest because he knew both families had to stay connected. I was only 6, too young to understand why I had to call my aunt Mom, or why, after she had been with us for just 1 month, I had a new half-sister. I only remember that on the day my mother passed, she held my hand tightly and said, "Mia, you must live well. Live healthily." That sentence became my shackle. Every time I heard Lily say she didn't want to die, a surge of absurdity rose in my heart. Those who want to live well and be loved are the ones struck by terminal illness. Those who want to die must live on, carrying their guilt. At home, I wasn't allowed to do many things because I was the eldest daughter, responsible for the Liu family. But my younger sister could act spoiled and do whatever she wanted. When my relationship with Daniel became known, my father sent my aunt to talk to me. She wore my mother's chow and pearl necklace, looking at me with disdain and pity. You can date, sure, but don't give away your first time. Otherwise, you'll lose your value, Mia. You're the older sister. You wouldn't want your younger sister to bear your responsibilities, would you? When I turned 20, my family gave me 2 choices. Marry a business partner of my father's, someone 20 years older than me who held a lot of influence over our family, or go abroad to study business and return to help manage the company. I chose the second option, not because I wanted to, but because it was the only way to delay the inevitable. Not long after I returned, they began evaluating potential marriage partners again, carefully selected men whose unions would benefit the Liu family's interests. Their approach was rational, clear-headed, and thorough. Except, of course, they never asked for my opinion. Luckily, Daniel proposed to me then. I accepted, thinking he could still pull me away from the abyss like he had done so many times before, keeping me from falling, keeping me grounded. But by then, Lily was already in his life. As I stood there, bruised and battered in that alleyway, my dress torn beyond recognition, I finally reached for the stiletto heel that had been thrown aside earlier. I gripped it tightly, raised it high, and struck down with all the strength I had left. Warm blood splattered across my face as the man collapsed, his body going limp. I leaned against the wall, slowly pulling myself up. A few steps away, the young man who had attacked me heard the commotion and turned toward me. There was something dark in his eyes, something broken. "You've got some fight in you," he muttered. I took 2 deep breaths and looked at him calmly. "It's always been your beloved Lily who wronged me. No matter how much you like her, her heart only belongs to Daniel. Even if he's married, even if she's dying, she'll never think of you." He charged at me in a rage, slapping me hard across the face. "If you hadn't accepted Daniel's proposal," he spat, "they would have gotten back together after their fight, and she would have been happy with him." My cheek burned with pain, but I tilted my head back and smiled faintly at him. Why shouldn't I have accepted it? If Lily had fought with Daniel and then wanted to marry you, would you have refused her? "She's dying," he said bitterly. "No matter how much I care, I can't cure her cancer. So now I take out my anger on someone innocent like you." I paused for a moment, then softly uttered 2 words. "Pathetic." At that moment, I remembered what the doctor had told me with a serious expression. "Miss Liu, you need to find a way to release your emotions. It will do you good." Turns out he was right. The young man stared at me, stunned. After a while, he let out a heart-wrenching wail, slid down the wall, and curled up on the ground, crying like a child. I just stood there watching, feeling oddly detached. These people always believe they're the most pitiful in the world. Lily, Daniel, they're all the same. I barely managed to tidy up my tattered dress and walked out of the alley. The first rays of sunrise were appearing on the distant horizon. Slowly, light filled the once dark sky. It was beautiful, so it didn't really matter anymore whether Daniel was by my side to watch it with me. I hailed a cab and went to the police station, handing over the bloodstained stiletto and asking the officer if this counted as self-defense. The young female officer looked at me, her clear eyes full of pity. "Miss Liu, don't worry. The marks on your body prove it was an attempted assault. But are you okay?" I said I was fine, that it might hurt a little, but I could take care of the wounds myself. "Do you need me to contact your family to come pick you up?" I lowered my eyes and smiled. "No need. Everyone in my family is busy with their own lives." After finishing my statement, I went home, found the divorce papers I had prepared, signed them, and sent them to Daniel's company. Throughout this entire process, Daniel never contacted me once. But I saw from Lily's social media that he had taken her to Yunnan. The reason, of course, was the same as always: she was dying. It was her last wish. She sat on a swing, and Daniel pushed her high into the air. Her pale dress billowed in the wind. "Daniel," she said, "when I die, bury my ashes here. I want to be a free spirit. If you ever think of me, come here and enjoy the view." How romantic. Even in death, she wanted to be profound, to ensure Daniel would remember her forever. After reading that post, I coldly deleted Lily from my contacts. I had already guessed Daniel's thoughts. His silence was a form of self-deception. He believed that as long as he didn't speak to me, he could quietly accompany Lily to the end of her life and then return to me, pretending nothing had happened. That we could continue on as if nothing changed. But that's impossible. Before leaving the city, I went to see someone, a mutual friend of mine and Daniel's named Alex. Because of my personality, I hadn't made many friends growing up. He barely counted as one. "I'm leaving," I declared. He bit his cigarette, standing up in shock. "No way. You got cancer too." Chuckled. "Of course not. I'm just not staying here anymore. Going to another city." "What about the Liu family business and legacy?" "I'm giving it up," I said calmly. Then repeated, "I never wanted it to begin with." Everyone knew about Daniel's tangled relationship with his terminally ill ex-girlfriend. They all laughed behind my back. So when I told my family about the divorce, my aunt gently said, "It's fine. In families like ours, even a second marriage won't be without value." Smiled. I have no value left. Don't count on it. The Liu family business is yours now, and the things you've always coveted that belonged to my mother, they've long been yours. I added, if you don't want the scandal of forcing the eldest daughter of the Liu family to her death, then let me go. For the first time, hatred appeared in her usually soft, gentle eyes. As if out of spite, she lowered her voice and softly said, It's not your fault, Mia. Your husband would rather be with a dying woman. You really are pitiful. After my love and expectations for Daniel had completely vanished, her words no longer had the power to hurt me. I told Alex anyway. If Daniel asks, don't tell him where I went. You have everything, Daniel. I have nothing left but this body. According to Alex, just a few days after I left, Daniel returned. He was alone without Lily. I guess she didn't make it. But at least she died between the mountains and the sea, fulfilling her last wish. Daniel called me many times but I didn't answer. Then he texted me, What's going on? Are you divorcing me, Mia? I didn't reply. There was no need to respond. Alex told me Daniel became like a caged, restless beast, searching everywhere for me, even going to the Liu family estate. When he stormed in, my father and aunt were discussing whether they should drag me back and marry me off to a wealthy widower in his 50s. Mia, you should have seen Daniel's expression, Alex marveled over the phone. Also, didn't you report the incident? The police sent a notice to your house and called, saying they couldn't reach you, but those 2 suspects in the attempted assault case have been caught. Alex kept me updated with other bits of news. Daniel went to the police station and asked for details about that day. Perhaps out of sympathy, the female officer told him everything, and then Daniel broke down. He collapsed on the sidewalk outside the police station, crying uncontrollably. Alex was with him, watching as Daniel lifted his red, tear-streaked eyes and asked again, Do you know where Mia went? No idea, Alex shrugged helplessly. You know Mia. Her heart's cold. None of us are close to her. She only ever cared about you. That seemed to completely crush Daniel. He started obsessively investigating everything I had been through over the years. What happened during those 3 years abroad? Every detail he uncovered seemed to break him further. I imagine he deeply regretted the things he said to me. But there's no undoing the past. Hearing about Daniel's suffering didn't bring me any satisfaction, only vast indifference. After all, whether I was going through those events or remembering them now, I couldn't muster much emotion. Because all my life I felt like a walking corpse, only ever moved by Daniel, who gave me a glimmer of hope in the stagnant waters of my existence. But now even that is gone. One day, Alex told me our old high school was holding an anniversary celebration, inviting distinguished alumni to attend. Both Daniel's and my invitations were sent to his place. He went back to visit the teachers, and the former headmaster remarked nostalgically, All these years you and Mia have been together and even got married. How rare. Not many young couples make it that far. Daniel stood motionless, listening to the headmaster recall the past, details he had long buried in the corners of his memory. He must have remembered how deeply he loved me at 17 or 18, even after we all got drunk after the college entrance exams walking down the street. He kept muttering about how he was going to marry Mia one day. Alex paused. So as we left the school I told him, Stop pretending. Mia was abroad for 3 years, and you never even thought about visiting her. You were too busy with Lily. Besides, she's already given up on you now. Daniel is a very smart man. From that one sentence, he figured out that I was still in contact with Alex. So he found a way to get my address from him. That afternoon, as I came back from the hospital with a bag of medication, I saw Daniel standing at the door. The moment he saw me, his eyes turned red. Mia, you're sick too, aren't you? No, I replied coldly. It's just some medication for psychological and mental health issues. I've been taking them for many years now. But it's not life-threatening, at least not like cancer, which is incurable. With that, I brushed past him and headed toward the courtyard. But Daniel grabbed the hem of my clothes, pleading, Mia, I don't want to divorce you. Found it absurd. My love for him didn't disappear all at once. It eroded slowly, with each moment he chose Lily. Now that she was gone, he came back to me. What was the point? So I calmly suggested. Actually, if you can't let go of Lily, you could have gone with her. I don't miss her. After raising his voice, Daniel's tone softened again. I told you from the start. Lily had cancer. She was dying. I just felt guilty and wanted to accompany her through her final journey. I'd lost count of how many times Daniel had mentioned Lily's illness in front of me. As if because she had cancer, the whole world had to accommodate her unconditionally. Death demanded everything to yield. So finally I laughed. What's so special about that? Just cancer. Just dying. Isn't it? She's not the only one who's ever gone through that. Over the years, I'd slit my wrists, inhaled charcoal fumes, and taken pills several times. Each time I was saved. When she cried in front of you saying she didn't have long to live, I continued, I was actually envious of her. I envied her for being able to die without restraint. If I could, I'd have traded places with her. Let her die and let me live so she could be happy with you. Everyone would get what they wanted. Wouldn't that be better? Daniel stared at me in disbelief. His eyes like two deep, bottomless lakes, now filled with wet despair and pain. Mia, I didn't know. If I had known. Daniel couldn't finish his sentence because he simply couldn't say anything more. It was clear he was the one who made the mistakes. He was the one who hurt me. Yet here he was, crying so miserably in front of me, as if I had wronged him somehow. Even at this moment, I didn't feel much emotion. Daniel, people change. People can change. So even though you promised at 20 that you'd wait for me, you changed your mind at 21. I never blamed you for that. I truly loved you so much that for all these years, you were the only one who could stir my emotions, even when you gave up on me and ran to Lily without hesitation. Could let it go. But that love wore down little by little, with your own hands. Whether it's you or Lily, or that lunatic who's in love with Lily, you all hurt me for the same reason. 'Cause I had everything. I lived a happy life. While you were all stuck in impossible situations, unable to love, always lacking something. But now I've given up everything. Have nothing left. Can you finally let me go? Daniel finally disappeared from my life. Occasionally, I would hear bits of news about him from Alex. For example, the 2 suspects in the assault case suddenly died in prison. Or how the Zhao family suddenly began ruthlessly suppressing the Liu family's company, undercutting them with unreasonable pricing until eventually, the Liu family went bankrupt, and the Zhao family was also severely weakened. The pure gold shackles that had bound me for over 20 years finally collapsed and disintegrated. When I heard the news, I was momentarily stunned, then went to a nearby convenience store to buy some alcohol. Since I'd had my stomach pumped several times, my stomach had always been fragile, unable to handle alcohol well. Whenever I went to a bar, I'd just order a drink and leave it untouched. But moments like these, rare as they were, deserved some celebration. I took a couple of sips, felt a slight pain in my stomach and put the can down. That's when my phone rang. Answered it. It was Daniel. His voice carried a hint of drunkenness. Mia, I avenged you. For a moment, it was as if his voice pulled me back to when I was 14. Bullied and Daniel fighting for me. In the end he came back to me, his face bruised, saying, I won, Mia. I stood up for you. That was the beginning of my feelings for him. But I quickly snapped back to reality and hung up. Daniel in a panic pleaded. Don't, Mia. I just want to hear you say a few more words. I smiled faintly. Have you visited Lily recently? Daniel didn't respond, but his breathing on the other end of the line suddenly became rapid, filled with bone-deep fear. I forgot to tell you, I said. The night you left me to go to Lily, she added me on WeChat. Every stop on your trip, every little thing you did. I knew it all. Daniel, I know you've done a lot for me. But I won't feel any gratitude toward you. You don't deserve it. The night breeze mixed with the soft moonlight gently blew across. After a long, long silence, Daniel's voice finally came through again, hoarse and choked with sobs. Yes, I don't deserve it, Mia. Everything is my fault. I'm the one who deserves to suffer. I beg you, please live well. I said nothing and just hung up. A couple of days ago, I went to the hospital for a follow-up. The doctor said my emotional state had improved significantly. Maybe escaping the heavy burdens of the past gave me a bit more courage to keep going. It had also been a long time since I dreamed of teenage me and Daniel. I tossed the beer can into the trash and left the balcony. Tonight I'll go to bed early. Tomorrow I'll go to the beach to watch the sunrise.